Welcome to Courtney and Jackie's
Book Review.
Today we will be reviewing the Book of Genesis, illustrated by R. Crumb.
And for some of you who don't know, the Book of Genesis is in the Bible.
Robert Dennis Crumb is an American cartoonist and musician born on August 30th, 1943. His work displays a nostalgia for American folk culture of the late 19th and 20th centuries.
The Book of Genesis is the first book in the Bible, and it starts off with talking about how God created the universe. After God created the universe, he created man, which turned out to be Adam, and then because man was lonely, he created woman, also known as Eve. After Adam and Eve were banned from the Promised Land after eating from the Tree of Knowledge, they set off on their own and had a family together, having their sons Abel and Cain. Cain got super jealous of his brother, so he killed him in cold blood. And the book continues to show the family line of Adam and Eve until it reaches Joseph and his brothers. In this story, Joseph and his brothers are extremely jealous of Joseph, and so they sell him into slavery. From there, Joseph is actually able to move up and to becoming the Pharaoh's right-hand man, and when his brothers come to him for help, Joseph must face his problems from his past. How do you feel about how they told creation in this book?
Since it is creation, it's how the world started, and in my opinion, the way that R. Crumb illustrated it all made sense, matches up with the actual stories or that I've read in other books as well that are based off of the Book of Genesis. And the one thing that I did find really interesting is after creation, when we were talking about Adam and Eve, and in the book R. Crumb illustrates the serpent to be four-legged and he stands upright. I thought that was really interesting, and even R. Crumb himself in the back says that the Bible never actually describes the serpent to be this way, but it was his own interpretation of it.
I thought that was very interesting too, because it just shows R. Crumb in this, because it's so hard probably for him to put his own spin on things, because it literally just takes the books of Genesis and he just drew about it, but he was able to put a little bit of himself and what he wanted to see in it himself, so that's good. Alright, Jackie, what do you think about how R. Crumb took the Book of Genesis and made it his own? How do you think about that?
Well, one thing, it's a little difficult since it is he's the illustrator, but for the overall, I think it had a good flow and it was easy to follow, and I think he did a fairly good job considering he just took words and that weren't his own and just tried his best to put how he sees them onto a page. Okay, so Courtney, how do you feel like the book was structured?
How do you mean structured?
Do you feel like it was structured similarly to the Bible? Do you feel like it was different? Do you think it kind of had a beginning, middle, end?
I think it went just like how the Bible is, only it's illustrated. And what I think about it is how it's illustrated and how each thing is what are these called, panels? Each one is a panel. I think that's kind of like how in each chapter there's different numbers. So I feel like I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I feel like almost each panel is a number that corresponds with that in the Bible. So that's what I think. That's my theory.
Considering the graphics that are in this book, what age group would you think this would be appropriate for?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I would never give this to elementary school kids because it features nudity, it features murder and violence. I would never give this to an elementary school kid. I would think maybe high middle school, if they reach 13, if they're allowed to, if you're letting them see R-rated movies or anything like that where they will see stuff like that in movies, then I'm totally it's okay for them to read this book. And it's a more serious version of all these stories because kids when they're younger, they have the illustrated little thing Bibles
and where it shows Adam and Eve, Noah's Ark, and all that stuff. But I don't think it shows to the extent and what like this is.
So, what's the difference between the drawn nudity in this book than the famous pieces of art that also show nudity that are related to the Bible stories?
Like in the beginning of Adam and Eve, like Adam and Eve don't have this comprehension that they're naked. Like they don't understand that being naked, oh, I am not supposed to be showing this or anything like that. They don't get that until after they eat the fruit.
But what's the difference between the kids seeing these famous works of art and then reading this illustrated graphic novel?
I guess when you put it that way, I'm not sure if there is much of a difference. Because, well, it kind of goes like the same way. Like, you're the parent. You can let your kids see this work of art, or you cannot let them see this work of art. That's your choice as a parent. Like, so you can even argue that the book is a work of art. So it's all up to your interpretation and being like, do you want your kid to see this? Do you not? It really all matters to you. I would more or not show this to my kid because more for the violence, not really the nudity. All right, Jackie, did you find anything that was conflicting or hypocritical in the book of Genesis?
Well, I would say reading did point out some potentially hypocritical or like conflicting ideas. For example, when Abram's wife could not conceive a child, she basically told him to sleep with her handmaid. And I think it's interesting, like just with like the religious background knowledge that I have, is a lot of the times like cheating or sleeping with other people's.
It's adultery, right?
Yeah, adultery. It's usually like a very taboo. It's like a no-no. It's like a sin, like that kind
of thing. It's a big no-no.
Yeah, but in a lot of the stories, like I feel like there is a sense of adultery in some things where it's like almost okay, but then there's others where it's like,
where it's like this is a sin.
Yeah, that's where like I'm slightly confused about that now, because like it's like a sin, but then in other instances it's supposedly okay and potentially acceptable. So I just think it's kind of interesting, and like I think the visuals given in the book actually probably is what like pointed this out to me.
Yeah, because I feel like, sometimes with just reading the Bible in general, it's a hard read to get through, especially all 50 chapters. So it being illustrated really helps to understand exactly what's happening, so you don't have to reread the same passage a bunch of times trying to understand it.
Yeah, I agree, and that's a really good point. Thank you for watching this review of R. Crumb's The Book of Genesis. Please stay tuned for a serious note from our sponsors. This video was sponsored by Charlie Brown's and Civil Services for providing Wolfbucks to students. Yay!
And for letting the library have us film in one of their study rooms.
And for Apple for making these amazing products that are completely not okay, because people mine from other countries in poor conditions just so we can have these products, and they're extremely overpriced, and other countries are extremely underpaid for these. Got it.
You good? Alright. Jackie, did you find anything that was hypocritical or conflicting in the book of Genesis?
Well, it
Right. Jackie, did you find anything that was hypocritical?